What is going on, guys? Well, it is here, our map showcase, where today DICE dropped a trailer featuring all the maps coming at launch for BF5, and even talked a little bit more about Panzerstorm, the first map we know to be coming post-launch as part of our Tides of War live service. But let's not waste any more time and jump into all of these maps. Now, I made mention yesterday after we received word that this trailer was supposed to come out today, that the one map on top of my list I was looking forward to the most was Aerodrome, the map we had seen the least on, mainly because it was the last map to be developed at launch. I also had made mention that I was hoping the hangars played a big part in this map, considering it was a unique feature to Aerodrome. And oh, did DICE deliver here, literally in the trailer that if you haven't seen in its entirety, you can check in the comments below. The narrator describes its central hangar is where both infantry and vehicles come together in the key strategic point that can be heavily fortified and defended. We see a brief clip from what looks like, this time, a shot from the airfield looking back into the hangars, kinda a reverse image from the original concept art we received on this map. However, these two hangars are not that main hangar on C flag that the trailer showcased. These hangars seem way too small and have taken way more damage than in contrast to this main hangar that just seems massive. We also get some spawn screen images of this map courtesy of the blogs that show that these hangars seen in the concept art aren't nearly the size of the hangar on C flag, but still get a place on the map where E flag will take place. We have stairs and a second floor on both sides of the C flag hangar, and apparently from the trailer the planes inside the hangar are destructible with some heavy weaponry. So definitely hype for this map. I feel like DICE definitely delivered here and it was worth the wait. We also see that it's a 6 flag map, which is pretty interesting because its North African counterpart Hamada has 7 flags, and it's the largest map for us at launch. So we know now that Aerodrome has some substantial size to it, which would make more sense if the narrator talks about not just infantry but vehicles as well that'll come together in this central hangar. I mean, some of the shots we get from a gunner's point of view on some of the vehicles, so with the paved flat ground, this may actually be the ideal map to be driving around mowing people down in one of these machine guns. But let's now talk about the second map on my list I was looking forward to seeing the most, and that's the map Devastation, the map that is literally right next to the Rotterdam map that we played on in the open beta. So it has that urban-like warfare to it, but unlike the Rotterdam map, Devastation takes place after there's been a significant amount of fighting and damage. If you haven't seen any actual World War II pictures of this map, I do recommend you type in Rotterdam World War II on Google, and you'll really see how much this map has earned its name. Now, the big thing I want to find out the most about this map is the church gameplay, its key feature at the heart of the map. And even though this trailer did mention it, it also mentioned a multi-story library. From the images I've seen so far, it doesn't appear that there'll be any availability to those train tracks that we were able to play on top of the Rotterdam map, since they have been so heavily damaged. But it does appear we'll get to see some multi-story gameplay on this map from the brief clip of this library that takes place on B flag right next to the church on C flag. If we get a closer look at this library, we see there's a lot of space to the left and a lot more passageways that lay ahead. So hopefully maybe bring new routes to other buildings. I don't really know yet. The map is made to be heavily damaged, so it wouldn't be surprising to me if there are buildings of sorts that have been heavily destroyed, collapsed into one another, making easy routes from one building into another. Now, even though hearing about this library was a pleasant surprise, there wasn't a lot covered on the church, so we'll have to wait and see more about the bell tower that sits on top of the church that appears heavily damaged in the Devastation of Rotterdam trailer we received during Gamescom. Would be cool to know if we can get on top of the church into that bell tower, giving snipers that classic high perch to lay down fire on unsuspecting enemies down below. Though that's beginning to look less and less likely, considering we haven't seen it advertised now, the odds of it being there at launch is very slim. However, I will say from the looks of all of these maps, it seems like these key features we've seen teased from DICE are the main features to the maps. So none of these things like the church on Devastation or the hangars on Aerodrome are like these background images that you can play around, but they are the main parts of the map that you're completely immersed in. So to me, that's really awesome. It's also really interesting to note that Devastation was described in the blogs as an unconventional battlefield map marked by periods of intense close-quarter firefights created by the same mind behind Battlefield 1's Fort de Vaux. So take that for what it's worth. Now, not wanting the snipers to feel disappointed, knowing there's a slim chance you'll be able to get on top of the church tower in the map of Devastation, when it comes to the map Arras, one of the French maps coming at launch, literally in the trailer you get that classic sniper moment I had just mentioned, where a player is posted up in a church tower picking off enemies down below. The narrator says the church provides sightlines for the entire map. Though this position is not quite on a capture zone, you see on the minimap it's basically surrounded by them. The nice thing is, due to destructibility, if the spot becomes too annoying for players pushing up down below, you can always send a tank shell towards the tower. It says this small town center will be the most contested area, which makes sense since what feels like the surrounding areas of this town is purely those yellow colored open fields. We are shown there are extensive trench lines on the map, so I'd imagine if you're going to go from A to F flag, the 6 flags this map holds, you're most likely going to want to go through the field and go through this small town to give you a brief moment of cover from the vast openness this map seems to project. Fortunately, we get more help from the blog dedicated to Arras, which shows an overhead view showing a bit more cover with trees and different types of brush. Though still a heavily open map, not quite as open as the lush fields that surround the outer rim of the playing field. Next we have Twisted Steel, the other French map coming at launch, but the first of the maps we ever saw. You of course can't go very far looking at this map without seeing the massive bridge. We know from DICE that not only was this the largest structure ever created by them, but it was also playable as well. So again, DICE not skipping a beat and making these key features on the maps not just pleasant backdrop images, but making them part of the main experience. We saw a lot of heavy fighting taking place on the bridge, but if you feel stuck, you can choose what looks like a less covered and less mobile wet marshland down below that you can use to cross the battlefield instead. We see tanks and airplanes making bomby runs on perfectly lined up enemy forces crossing the bridge, so this is looking to be another classic battlefield map we'll all get to take a part in and experience. Let's go back though to the North African desert and talk about Hamada, and I really don't even know what to say about this map other than it's massive. I think that's really what DICE is trying to get at here, and I think they've done a very good job at that. Really the only thing that comes to my mind when I see this map is where are the miniature mobile infantry vehicles that I can take to get me around the map easier. I know there'll be a lot of heavy vehicle gameplay between tanks and airplanes, which makes Battlefield what it is, but I definitely don't want to get caught out in the open trekking by foot through the North African desert, where I feel if I don't die from a heavy vehicle, the elements will probably take me out shortly after. Despite it being a larger than life size type of map, it does appear to have some centralized elements to it, such as some bridge gameplay over a steep canyon with ruins on top of it. So if you're looking to take a break from the massive tank battles this map is inspired by, those areas are probably your better bet. We also get from a brief clip from the blog on Hamada some weather dynamics of a dust storm taking place. And finally, the last map coming to us at launch that we haven't yet to experience and play on in like an alpha or open beta is Fiel 652, the second snow map that takes place on top of a mountain that has an interesting mix of infantry and airplane fighting. We get a look at just how drastic of a tone this dynamic weathering takes place on this map, something we haven't seen heavily featured too much in this trailer showcase, but we see it really shift in a brief clip we get from Fiel 652. I'm pretty sure this is described as the smallest map that's going to be there at launch, and from the looks of the trailer, it'll be interesting to see how much accessibility we'll have on these mountain peaks, since we see images of parachutes flapping in the wind caught on top of these peaks. The blog lets us know the cabins of Flag C offer scant but essential cover for intense close quarters combat, But beware, fire from the cliffs and elevations near flags A, B, and D. They're a great place to overlook the objective, hunker down, and line up for the perfect shot. But overall, a solid trailer in my opinion from DICE. There are blogs posted for each of these 8 maps that I'll link in the comments down below that give a wealth more different angles of each of these maps that you won't see in the trailer. There was also showcased the 2 open beta maps, Rotterdam and Narvik, but for the most part we see the same maps in the trailer that we've already experienced. We do get a few images teased more on the first post-launch map called Panzerstorm, so we'll have to wait a little bit longer till it gets its own proper blog and hopefully its own Belgian counterpart map that will take place with it in its grand operation scheme. But feel free to let me know what your guys' favorite map was in the trailer in the comments below. But that is it for you guys today. Again, I always appreciate you guys being here. I am Livin', and I'll catch you guys again later.